Let's extend JavaScript with carried Python-like function calls. It's okay if you don't have any idea why this could be useful. Stay here, you will get some. Let's start with empty files. Let's showcase the idea in a Markdown file. There is built-in Markdown preview. Let's use it. After some typing, we get this. The final line is what we want to achieve. But first, let's consider what is happening when a function is receiving its arguments in a object, not in a list. First effect is the user of the function has to know the names of arguments. This is good because we know the user is aware of what the argument should be. From this example, it is very evident why we would want this. By reading line 18, we have no clue what is 5 and what is 7. The second example is very evident by itself, and the user has some confidence what he is doing. Another side effect is you can pass arguments in any order. All this we get by simply converting a function to receive an object instead of argument list. But the final line is still not possible. So let's make it possible. Here I'm making a function that is higher order function. It receives our function that we want to be possible to call in parts, and it will return something. This something is another function. And the job of this function is to unite the state that is passed in parts and to consider if we should call the original function or we should continue gathering. Let's stay here. A lot of interesting stuff is happening. First, type template. Using a partial of given type as argument of return function allows us to collect the required arguments part by part. Partial. Second, the part of line 12 is ready, is obviously not complete. Something is missing here. And line 15 shows that state argument of make carry function was actually never intended to be used by make carry user. It's only used so we can, in the implementation itself, pass the state that is already given. And line 8 is interesting. I put it here even though state has the default value. Why? To showcase an interesting example that is occurring in web development often. If you have old state and user is required to input new state and you want to merge these two states, but as soon as we deal with user input, it can be undefined, it can exist, it can be invalid, and so on. So this is a quick way to merge without need for flattening. Basically, this element can exist not. It's kind of phantom. It is there if we need it, and it is not there if there is no need. Using a few tricks, implementation is simple enough. Let's test what we have done. Bun is cool. It can run TypeScript without compilation, and it can watch for our changes without installation of additional packages. So let's run our test file on the left and see what's up. Here we made a function that is receiving an object as expected. And by calling this function improperly, we see an interesting point. Only thing from stopping us to call function improperly is actually compile time. If you run the build code, the function will get called. We make a carry of our function, and it is type aware. This is good. Let's turn off the function call, and let's add this missing part. How will we validate? Well, for validation we will use Zod. Zod basically unites runtime and compile time. You can make compile time constants, and they can validate your objects, and you can infer types based on these compile time constants. Perfect for our use case. So here is a Zod type for our function and type inference. The most important thing is achieved. Function is called only when we gather all arguments. Otherwise, it is still returning a higher order function that can gather more arguments. Here we can see the latest state of an argument will be accepted. Here is an objection. We don't make functions to receive objects. We make them to receive argument lists. And we want our makeCarry function to be able to receive such a function that receives argument list. This will require some additional effort. We will witness in part 2. But for now, a very small, simple function allows us non-existing language feature. And I think this is very sexy. See you in part 2.